Kent here, and I'd like to give you an update on accelerated church planting in Bosnia and Croatia.
Okay, let's start with a little bit of a review. In Croatia and Bosnia, there are about 8 million people. But in Croatia, there could be as few as 10,000 believers. And in Bosnia, where Islam is the main religion, there could be as few as 500.
Well, in the midst of this kind of tough situation, church planting, and actually, to be honest, church growth altogether, is quite slow, and it's struggling. Well, into this situation came Stephen Bell. Stephen Bell is an experienced ECM missionary and church planter, and he, as he lived there in Croatia, began to meet dedicated local pastors, church leaders who were actually already making a difference. They planted churches, they were reaching people for Jesus, and they were ready to do more if they just had a little bit of a helping hand. So what has actually happened over the last year? Let's start with these 4 men. There's Jonathan, there's Nikola, there's Sasha, and there's Radovan. But because there's not time to go through everything, let's start looking at Jonathan and Nikola's ministry. Well, they had already, by the time Stephen met them, they had already planted their first church. It was about 10 years old. It had grown to its capacity. 65 people were as many as they could stuff into the building they had. But that wasn't stopping them. They were already doing outreach events. Recently, they did a musical event which had about 600 people attending in the center of their local town. But that's not all they'd done. They'd also planted out a second church. This one was already growing. They did similar things like the musical event, but they'd also started a counseling center where at least 150 people have already heard the gospel. But that's not enough. They then went ahead and just at the end of 2011 started a third church. And this is the primary one that ECM is going to be focusing on trying to help them resource. But if that's not enough, they also have a vision to plant 3 more churches into surrounding towns. They want to make a giant difference to their part of Croatia. But alongside this, they've been preparing for the arrival of more people. Because to be honest, they simply need help. There are not enough dedicated local Christians in a country like this in order to meet the need. And that takes us to someplace unexpected. Surprisingly, that takes us to Brazil and Ukraine. Part of Stephen's vision was to go to places where God had already been moving, where the church had had revival, let's say. And that includes Brazil and Ukraine. So, for example, Brazil has something in the range of 50 million evangelicals. By comparison, all of Europe only has 18 million. That's a lot of people to challenge. So, Stephen and others began to make trips from Croatia and Bosnia to places like Brazil and Ukraine to challenge people and say, does this connect to you? Do you understand this need? And this certainly has connected. In October 2011, Stephen and these 4 guys organized a conference in Croatia, which was attended not just by people from the Balkans interested in making this happen, but also 6 people from Ukraine, 11 people from Brazil. After the conference, they stuffed them all into 3 vehicles, and they drove all around the area, getting a sense of what God was doing and what was going on. Some of them, the people who'd attended, went home and spread the vision. Some of them went home and prayed about coming back. Even as I speak, 2 Brazilian women have arrived in Croatia and are working in one of these churches. Money may be tight in Brazil, I'll be honest, but it's easier than it used to be. In fact, the Brazilian economy has just overtaken the UK economy in scale. In addition, another young Brazilian man who is a professional football player will be arriving in June. Imagine the excitement when the local church can announce to the local community that they're running a football club organized by a Brazilian professional footballer. But how about Ukraine? Does that mean nothing's happening from there? Well, maybe no one's arrived from Ukraine yet,
but already a serious, experienced pastor and his wife. The pastor, in fact, has already been involved in the planting of 4 different churches, have said that they want to come and join into this project for a couple of years, helping to organize things and train people. And in fact, now may be a quite strategic time for Ukrainians, because whereas they usually need visas to come to Bosnia and Croatia, because of a major sports event in that part of the world, until October, visas aren't required. God even uses sports for his own purposes. Well, the project actually requires more than just people. The project also requires money. Well, the first lump sum that's allowed this project to kick off has come from the UK. And thank you to the person who did that.
So we have all these men ready, we have the ground prepared, we have people being challenged and beginning to even come. We have resources being prepared and raised, but I've left out the important issue of partnerships.
Many of those involved on the ground in this project have been Baptists. So it's been really important for the Croatian Baptists to invite the Ukrainian Baptists to come and help and send people. Well, because that's happened, in consultation with Stephen, the Ukrainian Baptist top mission people are beginning to look at their possible people with good mission experience and church planting experience who they could think they can send across and help be successful. Now, one aspect of this that I found particularly exciting when I was visiting Ukraine recently with Stephen was that there's a movement in Ukraine that focuses on lay discipleship training to help people grow into leadership. Now, they've not just been amazingly successful in Ukraine, but they've also done that in Russia. They're now doing it in Kazakhstan. They're spreading into Nepal. They're spreading into India. It's becoming literally quite a movement. In fact, one of the men I met who was central to this has helped plant in his area 16 different churches. And he wants to come across to Croatia and to Bosnia and to help train local people. Wow. But other people in Croatia are getting excited too. It's not just people from outside. And that's a crucial part of the plan, because the idea is not just for us at ECM to do more, but to have lots more people involved, doing lots of things, being inspired, being envisioned, and being trained. Well, internationally recognized church planting consultant Johan Lucas is excited about this project. In fact, he's begun to make regular trips to Croatia where he's coming and he's training people, yes, from these key churches and these key workers who we've already mentioned, but he's also been asked by people like the Croatian Baptists to run a national event for them. And along the way, to make sure that there are good resources, one of his books on church planting is being translated right now as I speak into Croatian so that it will be available as an ongoing resource.
I'm getting tired just telling you all this, but is that all that's going on? No, it isn't.
Recently, the head of one of Croatia's largest seminaries said that he wanted to get his students involved in this project. So while they're in the midst of doing their 4-year pastoral training, they can have actual experience of church planting. Think about it. They could come, they can work, they can see church planting works, and this project could literally be changing the expectation of tomorrow's church leaders in Croatia and Bosnia. But actually, they're not just from there. Some of these people come from other places, like Serbia. So the question's now been asked, can it extend into other countries?
And that takes us on to the future of this project. Let me be honest, we're struggling to keep up with all of the stuff that I've already talked to you about, and I've not shared everything. But it feels like God's opening doors, at least cracking them open, and so let me give you a hint of what might be happening there.
As I said, one of these areas is Serbia. Stephen's already gone and had talks with the Serbian Baptists, and they're excited about considering something like this happening there. Another area nearby is Slovenia, where there is an experienced church planter sitting waiting who would take additional workers today if we had them ready to send.
Who knows where all this will lead? I certainly don't, but we are praying that all of this will result in accelerated church planting in Bosnia, Croatia, possibly beyond that. And it wouldn't have happened without your help. Thank you for having made the first year possible and such a success.